Good evening, everybody, and you're most welcome perhaps to your final session of the evening or your first session of our open evening this evening, where we're focusing in this section on careers in business. And I'm really delighted to welcome you. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Maeve Houlihan. I'm the director of the Quinn School, and very proudly so. And I'm particularly delighted to introduce our panel to you this evening, though we've three fantastic contributors. We have Leonie Phipps, who is the UCD Career and Skills Consultant with us here in the Business School. And Leonie's going to share with us a little bit about what students in the Quinn School could expect or might be thinking about as they go through the degree programme. And then we're very lucky to be joined by Talusha Akinlabi. And Talusha is in fact a graduate of the program from 2016, the BCom International program with Chinese, and is in the middle of I would say the early stages, but still has extraordinary achievements already in a very interesting career in retail account management at Google and previously at Salesforce. And we'll hear a lot more about that. And then finally, we're joined by Paul Vance, who's Director of Resourcing at KPMG. And with Paul, we're very lucky to get an overview of what's happening in the professional firms and maybe some questions that you might have about the sort of skills that firms are looking for in graduates. And those are questions that we're always very concerned about and interested in here in the Quinn School. So that's the map. We'll aim to keep the session within about 45 minutes, but if you have questions as we go through, please do feel free to use the questions and answer box. It's available to you right throughout, and we'll be keeping an eye on it for questions. So you don't have to wait till the end. We'll be delighted to hear from you. So with no further ado, I'd be delighted to hand over to Leonie and welcome you, and thank you, Leonie.
Thanks, Maeve. Thanks for having me. And hi, everyone, for joining this session this evening. So my name is Leonie Phipps, and I am the Career and Skills Consultant for the Undergraduate School of Business. So I guess I just want to go through a whistle-stop tour of the career supports available to UCD College of Business students, and also, I suppose, what you can do with your business degree as well. Next slide, please, Maeve. Okay, so what do we do as a career service? So we run one-to-one career guidance appointments. We also run a number of careers and skills workshops and skills awards and programs throughout the academic year. We host a series of recruitment fairs during the year as well, and some of them are focused on internships and some of them are focused on graduate jobs and graduate programs. We also work quite closely with employers, and we organise a series of employer events. A lot of them are quite interactive. Some of them are information sessions. And then we also have a jobs portal whereby employers are invited to advertise their jobs on our internal jobs board. So I suppose to give you a sense of what to expect during a one-to-one appointment. So we can help you and give you guidance and review your CV, your cover letter, or give you some advice and guidance if you have to fill in an online application form. We can have a conversation about career options and career planning. So, what are you going to do with your business degree? We can give you advice on how to find and how to secure graduate jobs, internships, whether that's an academic internship or a summer internship. We can help you with interview preparation, and we can also do a mock interview as well, just to make sure that you're really prepared for both your internships and your graduate jobs as well. Just to kind of give you a sense of the types of careers, workshops and talks and information sessions that myself and my colleagues would do. So we run a lot of information sessions and workshops on CVs, cover letters, online application forms, interview techniques, LinkedIn, networking, job searching strategies. So, where to find jobs and how to apply for jobs. We also do, I suppose, a series of talks and information sessions on graduate jobs and graduate programs and how to apply for them and where to find them. Summer internships and academic internships, where to find them and how to apply for them as well. We also, I suppose, give you advice and run sessions on master's programs and further study, and again, how to apply for them. We also do, I suppose, a series of skills workshops that are focused around commercial awareness, presentation skills, teamwork, communication, leadership, and also emotional intelligence as well. We have a new an exciting careers platform that we launched recently. So we're the first university in Ireland to launch it. But it has a series of tools that I suppose you as a UCD College of Business student have access to. So there's a CV building tool, which again helps you to put together and generate a really good CV. There's a CV scanning tool. So the idea of the CV scanning tool is that basically it rates your CV, and it rates your CV on the format, the presentation, the content. Are you highlighting your skills? And it gives you really specific feedback that you can work towards, just so that you have a really good CV for your applications as well. There's a cover letter builder, again, to give you some really good tips on how to put together a really good and impactful cover letter. We have a practice video interview tool. So a lot of graduate employers, their first round interview stage involves, answering a series of, I suppose, questions and then being recorded answering those questions. So this platform will give you the opportunity to practice answering a series of questions and get, I suppose, some specific feedback as well. There's plenty of business skills, modules, and advice on the platform as well. For those of you that are interested in getting to know more about your personality and your skills and what skills you need to improve on and develop, there's plenty of personality and skills-based assessments as well. There's aptitude testing that you can practice. There's assessment center practice exercises and tests as well. And there's loads of information on industry insights and information, sectoral information as well. I suppose this is just a flavor of what I specifically do for undergraduate School of Business students. So each year I organize, normally it's a physical trip, but this year it was virtual because of COVID. So we organize an annual finance and consulting trip to London. So those are for stage 2 students that are interested in working in investment banking and consulting firms specifically in London. So again, keep an eye out for those emails that come through. We also organize an annual law trip for business and law students who are interested in working in law firms, specifically in London as well. I organize specific workshops and talks specifically around spring insights programs, graduate programs, summer internship programs, specifically for business students. I have drop-in CV clinics actually physically in the Quinn building. I also run a series of academic internship prep sessions, and there's loads of support there available as well. I would organize alumni networking panel events with UCD alumni just to give you a flavor for the types of careers that they go into, but also to help build up your network of contacts. And then I would run then a mock assessment center just to make sure that you're prepared for the job market. So just to kind of give you an insight into where Quinn students go and the types of jobs that they go into. So they go into professional services, consulting, banking, financial services, insurance, law firms, technology companies, software companies, telecommunications, retail, pharmaceutical, engineering, public sector. So pretty much every sector they go into as well. Again, just to give you, I suppose, a sense of the top employers that would hire UCD College of Business students. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, it's just to give you a sense of, what types of jobs you can get and what kind of organizations will hire you. So, our top employers would be KPMG, PwC, Deloitte, Grant Thornton, EY, Accenture, Bank of Ireland, AIB, Central Bank as well, Davy, technology companies likes of LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, and then some law firms as well, like Arthur Cox and Mason Hayes and Curran. Again, just to give you a sense of the types of jobs that you can attain when, I suppose, studying for a business degree. And again, a lot of our students will go into these types of career areas. So they're training to become accountants. They're going into the areas of tax, auditing, advisory, consulting. They're going into investment banking, corporate banking, retail banking, fund management. They're training to be solicitors. They're also going into non-finance careers such as digital marketing, content marketing, advertising, sales, PR. They're also going into the likes of HR, recruitment, training and development, business operations, supply chain, logistics, business and data analytics, product management, but also project management as well. So again, it's not an exhaustive list. It just gives you a sense of what you can do with your business degree. And here is just a link to Grad Ireland. And basically what this website does is it gives you more information on careers and different job functions. So again, I would encourage you maybe to start doing some research. And then I'm open to answering any questions either now or at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leonie. And of course, that really was a whistle-stop tour, but it just goes to show how much is happening in the careers area. And on one of the earlier sessions today, I did say that we really believe here in the Quinn School that the college, it's about ideas and it's about the skills and the experiences that you gain, but it's also really about the friendships that you build and how you develop your character and your personality. It's all of those things. This session we're focusing on careers, but I really want to get across that we prioritize that because we know how important it is to everybody that you do have a clear opportunity to really build towards your career. But it is not the only reason to be in college, and we hold those thoughts tightly to our hearts. I think everybody will be nodding on that one. Lucy, it's so lovely to have you join us. And I suppose I wanted to get a sense because you were with us in the Quinn School from, I think, 2012 to 2016 with the Become International. And it'd be lovely to just get a sense of your memories from that time and then to take us through your career since. And you're so welcome.
Thank you so much, Maeve. Hi, everyone. Yes, so as Maeve said, I studied BCom International with Chinese all the way back in 2012. I remember when I was doing my leaving cert, I knew what I didn't want to study, but I also kind of knew I wanted to maybe go towards languages. I also knew that in transition year, I'd loved the mini company. And so I wanted to do something maybe around business. And I was so excited to find that a course existed that combined both business and languages. And I chose Chinese because it was the randomest one on the list. I thought it'd be cool to learn something that wasn't based on Latin like French or Spanish. And I'm so glad I made that choice because it really opened my eyes and my life in general to a whole other parts of the world I knew nothing about. And the 4 years were amazing. I made lifelong friends who I meet up with regularly. I'm meeting a group on Saturday now. And I learned so much about not just business, but around the place of business in the world. As Maeve said, college isn't just about, the jobs you're expecting to get after, but it's really about what you learn in those 4 years. And I was really challenged to think about, for example, the ethics of business and society, or do businesses, have some sort of responsibility to the people around them as well as their stakeholders? And it was stuff I'd never really thought of before. I just thought business, go into an office, make money, leave. But actually, it's influences everything we do on a daily basis. And so kind of understanding the underpinnings below it, for example, why milk is always at the very back in the supermarkets, or why you might get specific app notifications at certain times of the day to remind you to buy something from ASOS. I've just really loved getting into that. And so the 4 years of Quinn were really pivotal in kind of cementing my love of business overall. But as you saw from that list Leonie showed, in terms of all the careers you can do in business, there's just so much you can do with a business degree. And I remember in my 4 years, not really knowing what I wanted to go into. And so I used my time at Quinn to learn as much as possible from a variety of different types of modules. So I didn't specialize in just marketing or accounting or anything like that. I did a little bit of everything, which my dad wasn't so happy with at the time, but now I'm so glad I did because now I know a bit about everything. So I did modules in Chinese language, obviously in Chinese economy and everything like that. But in terms of business, I did digital marketing, I did business strategy, did a little bit of accounting. I went on the London trip, which was amazing, to investment banks and consulting firms, saw a little bit of that world. I did a module called Doing Business in Africa, which was really, really great. I think it was the first time it was run when I was still in UCD. And I learned that there was a lot I could do with my degree. So what I decided to do after I graduated then in 2016 was I joined a graduate program at what was a startup then, but isn't anymore, a company called Web Summit. So it's a tech conference that first started in Dublin and now is in Lisbon. And I love the idea of a graduate program because you get to do a bit of everything before you decide to, go into a specific department. So I worked on the sales team for a few months, then I worked in the marketing team, and I had titles, like job titles I never even knew existed, like content writer or content associate. I didn't know people needed to write content for websites or for emails. So I did that for about a year, loved it, but I decided to join a bigger company. So I joined Salesforce, again, a company I'd never heard of until I graduated from college, but they're a really big tech company where they create software that allows businesses to communicate with their customers a lot easier, whether it's like a customer service chat or a sales process, anything like that. Salesforce builds it. And I had a job, again, I didn't know it existed. It was on a long list of jobs business people could do, but it was called a solution engineer or a solutions consultant, where basically you talk to businesses and you find out what their problems are, what are their challenges. Do they, only have phone customer service? Or do they find it very difficult to take people through a long sales process? So after listening to their problems, I would then have to go back and think of what Salesforce solutions would work for them. And I'd build out a demo of what I thought would work for them. And again, I can't code, but Salesforce, actually the technology doesn't need people to code. So I'd build out demos, present it back to CEOs, to like heads of operations, and I'll say, this is what you need. They'd have a look at it, they'd see how it would work for their business, and then they would decide whether or not to go ahead and buy it. And I loved it because I worked with all types of businesses, from like golf merchandisers to like people who sold beauty products, all using the same technology. And I really, really loved it. So I did that for about 2 years, and I was working with the UK markets at the time. And so traveling a lot from Dublin to London on the 7 a.m. Aer Lingus flights, not always as glamorous because it meant waking up at 4 a.m. quite a bit, but I enjoyed it for the few years I did it. And I decided I wanted to go back and work with the African markets. So I grew up in Ireland. I moved here when I was 7, and I'd never really lived on the continent before, after that. And I wanted to somehow be connected back to Africa. So I wanted to join a company where I would be able to work specifically with African clients. So I joined Google as an account manager for retailers. You might wonder, what does account manager mean? I thought so as well, even when I was doing the interview. But Google, apart from being a search engine, having Gmail and so on, makes its money from ads. And so for the largest advertisers, Google assigns specific account managers who make sure the clients are able to use Google Ads as well, to the best of their ability, that they're following best practice. So I have really close relationships with the top 10 retailers in South Africa. I have calls with them every week where I make sure their YouTube ads look good, that they're targeting people correctly on search and so on. And it's been really great. I've learned so much about the retail sector, specifically in South Africa. And I think a lot of what I do now comes to the openness that I was shown in Quinn, from learning a little bit of everything. Now in my job, I do a little bit of everything. And I think coming into college with that open mindset of not funneling yourself straight into one thing, but allowing yourself to be exposed to all different types of thinking allows you then to be adaptable and flexible as you mold into this new world of work. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of my time in Quinn and what I've done afterwards as well.
Well, it's a joyful whistle stop, and thank you so much to Lucia for sharing all of that. And I know there'll be questions, so we'll come back with questions. But if I may, I'll bring in Paul, and I'm delighted to have all of these three different perspectives, because we have the career coach and guide. We have somebody who's really moving forward in her career and has the position of looking back and looking forward and being able to see how they fit. And Paul, you have, I suppose, you have such a breadth of insight from your position in KPMG as Director of Resourcing about both what's happening in the professional firms in accounting and what you're looking for. And I'm particularly aware as well that KPMG is very well recognised for its graduate programme, and I'm sure there's reasons for that. And I'd like to ask you really to tell us a little bit about your perspective for our audience.
Sure. Well, I can say that the UCD Quinn students are well sought after, not just by KPMG, but industries and businesses right across the board. And one of the reasons for that is you're looking for the student that has a lot more than just the academic caliber or qualifications. And a bit like what Telus just mentioned, about a little bit of everything goes a long way when it comes down to approaching an employer with a set of skills. And I'm a huge believer in students having an holistic approach to their CV right from the very beginning. And most employers, regardless of the sector, are looking for that. And we see that in abundance because it's really encouraged in UCD Quinn students. So the caliber of students is fantastic. And it's almost a given, which almost sounds terrible, but And so we take it as a given that the starting point here is we've got a fantastic student. Now, what have they got on top of that? And students getting involved in extracurricular activity, being members of societies, being involved in community work, all available to you in Quinn. And we really value that, because that's where the rounding comes along, and that's where, I suppose, various other skill sets come to the fore. So, the stuff that we look for example, when we're speaking to a student, we're looking for their decision-making ability, how innovative they are, problem solving. Every employer is looking for that, I guess. Attention to detail. The teamwork is such an important thing. And, whether it's somebody who played sports, whether it's somebody just participated in something extracurricular, whether it's somebody that helped out somebody in class, whatever that is, building those skills is such an important thing in the work environment. I think as well, the other thing that comes along is knowledge of our industry comes through Quinn as well. So when we are talking to students, they're aware of our profession, what the professional services, be it audit, tax, advisory, or consulting. They're aware to a high level of what's out there. So I guess we meet them in the middle in terms of their knowledge and sharing our knowledge with them as well. That's an important thing to us. And something that has been said already, that what we're really looking for is the foundations and the fundamentals. And as part of that, then we'll take them in and bring those students through our training program. Typically, our training program takes about 3.5 years across. This is not just the KPMG thing, but across the industry. And what you're really doing is creating a new platform of business professionals where they are competent in front of anybody in industry. They're working at ground level, they're working at board level, and building that confidence and building industry knowledge. So what you might be working on an aircraft leasing company, and this week and next week it could be a pharmaceutical company, and maybe even Salesforce, just to mix it up. But I guess you talked about a variety in the course. I think the profession that I work in offers that variety in career as well, because I think people on the outside looking in may think, oh gosh, I'm not sure, do I want to stick with that? Really what you're doing is building a professional qualification on top of your Quinn qualification. And it's almost the next layer, and deciding what you want to do there. I'll give you a small example. You mentioned earlier on about working in Web Summit, one of your first jobs. We were actually with Web Summit at the very beginning. So we met them. It was an idea. One of our partners, and maybe you're aware, Anna Scally, met with the guys in Web Summit and worked with them when they were unheard of, and worked them all the way through, and still part of that today. So it's not just the big business, it's the small unknown guys that we work with as well, and very often that's where the innovation comes as well, and people love getting involved in that. And there's also huge variety. So while most of our graduates train to be professional chartered accountants, but they're working across business environments, and it's already been said a few times that all companies need business professionals to help them with decision making. So whether you're buying or selling, whether you're expanding or contracting, you need somebody there to be able to understand where do the figures and facts lie. Whether it's a tax professional, an audit professional, a consultant, to help you with those choices, whether you're raising finance or whether you're looking to release equity. All of those type of decisions require a KPMG type professional or an industry professional that would be, I suppose, trained in that area and competent in that area. And I suppose just the final point, the training program, as I say, is about 3.5 years. Very quickly, your responsibilities are increasing all the time. We have a large graduate training program. Responsibility is handed year on year. So unlike some industries, we're so lucky that we're always out looking for graduates. So last year was an unusual year, but we recruited 400 graduates last year, and across the industry, I'd say that was probably close to 1,600 graduates just in our industry. And I think that's a confidence that you can put into the students to say, you know what, if you're not sure what you want to do and you want to be a business professional, maybe not think about it as the big career step, but maybe think about it as the next platform to build your business credentials. And very often careers come along in cycles, and everybody says you should have something like 8 careers in your life. I'm not so sure about that, but it's step one, not step, for the next 50 years. It's step one along the way, and building that platform and building out your CV as well. So I hope that answers your question, Maeve.
That's fantastic, Paula. I think you are giving us that flavor for the immense range of possibilities within the firms, within the professional service firms. And every year I survey the first years just to ask them, as they come in the door, what is your ambition, your career ambition? And it's only just to get a kind of pulse of where people's thinking is at. And what I love is, so we often, it's often assumed that everybody who does business might want to become an accountant. It's an old kind of association. And actually, yeah, in huge numbers, people do think about accountancy as a career. But what I love is all of the tail of qualifications that people put on it: accountancy in a travel firm, accountancy in a tech firm, or marketing in, or HR in, or so. I think people have become more and more attuned to the type of work environments, and the idea of maybe being a T person, that's somebody that has a depth of specialism but can work across a whole variety of sectors.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's such an important thing, because very often, and was mentioned earlier on, very often at the age of 18, you're not really sure what you want to do. I'm always envious of those people that have it all figured out early on in life. But for most students, they don't. And it's about having the broad range of skills, build that up, and then decide, well, I go work for Salesforce, or I'll go for Google, or whoever it is. But you're building that out all the time, and you're all the time adding a new layer. And the other thing, I suppose, as well, I suppose I'm really proud of the fact that when people are finished their training contract with KPMG and they have that professional qualification, it's an international passport. And while there might be parents listening to this thinking, oh, I don't want my son or daughter to head to faraway places, the qualification carries so much weight, and it's such an important thing. So the Quinn qualification, the UCD qualification, and the Chartered Accountancy qualification, really, I always tell students it's an international passport. And even now, when things are being restricted, we have lots of people both going and coming to the firm. North America, thankfully, is back open, so people want to spread their wings and advance their career without giving up the career. It's a fantastic thing. So we have a bunch of people heading to Toronto, to New York, to LA, and to other parts around North America. And I think it's a fantastic thing. Sadly, Australia is not open for a lot of people just yet. Hopefully they'll come back around. And likewise, we have people coming in from all over the world, from as far away as Japan to as close as Malta. So I think there's that refreshing piece that people don't necessarily think, that it can add an international dimension as well. I think that's always an important thing, particularly at your beginning of your career, that you can absorb new cultures as well in the working environment.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. So I think overall we're getting a sense. We would talk about it in terms of the research of the school as well, of a changing world of work, but recognizing that some of the skills that you can acquire through the types of degrees and types of experiences that you'd have here at the Quinn School are really about opening up your adaptability and your capacity to be a problem solver. And we often talk about it in terms of C skills. So bringing your curiosity, your ability to communicate, your ability to collaborate, your ability to think critically, and right across to your intercultural skills, and ultimately, really strongly, your character. And I think that needs to be emphasized. Because all of us are much more than only our skills. And in the end, people, I think people want to work with people that they can relate to and they can trust. So Talusha, when you were, and you stand now 5 years into your career, so in terms of the vision for your career, how is it unfolding, and where do you see yourself going next? And can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so starting into my career journey, I didn't really know where I wanted to go. And even now I can only see about a few years down the line. I know I love working in tech. I know I love working with technology products and technology solutions. And so I actually just finished a postgrad in products management, because I realized I really like the intersection the product management allows, which is the intersection of business, of a technology, and its usability for a user as well. I love looking at an app and seeing all the ways it could be improved, and wondering why potentially they might not have prioritized one feature over another. And so my plan over the next couple of years is to become a product manager. I've worked in large companies the past 4 years, so Google and Salesforce. So I'm thinking of maybe going back to a smaller company, maybe a startup again, and really seeing our product through from its inception until it's launched. And so that's something I think I'm going to be working towards for the next couple of years. Once I've done that, who knows, maybe I'll decide to have another career. But I think in the short term, I'm looking at the product space, because that's a really exciting thing right now. Not just technology as a whole, but specifically what products are solving what issues for users. And I love the fact that it's always new. There's always something else to think about. There's always competition. Who's going to get there first? And I like the excitement of that. So I think that's where I'll be heading next. It's still quite vague, but yeah, that's where I'm heading to.
There's a real sense though of ambition and energy, and I think that's in the end for us, you know, business is about getting things done, doing things, and figuring out what are the things that should or could be done in a particular context. So you're really embodying that. You mentioned tech, Talushi, and there has been a number of questions throughout the calls this evening about, say, the relationship between business and tech. And yeah, would you have any comments on that? I mean, is a business degree a good route into the tech sector, do you believe?
I think it's a good route. It's not the only route, but I really think it's a good route. The reason I think so is that a business degree really grounds you in the fundamentals, and then you can go and decide to disrupt them yourself. But I think it's good to know what the basics are. Even for example, in Web Summit, when I first started out, my modules in marketing really helped me when it came to, you know, writing email newsletters, thinking about strategies to get people to come to the events. And I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have pulled that out of nowhere. And so I think business is a really good grounding. And all tech companies need business people. They have a lot of accountants, they have a lot of HR people, they have a lot of general operations people. It's not always just entrepreneurs in that sense. So I think definitely if you want to go into tech, a business degree is a great way. And I saw that there was a question around opportunities for internships in tech companies. So in general, yes, a lot of tech companies, at least Google and Salesforce, have internships that you can do during the summer. And I'm sure it's something you can maybe fold into your degree at Quinn as well. But yes, I would highly recommend looking into tech as well, but also not just looking at tech for the flashy jobs, but actually there's a lot of really great long-term career opportunities in tech companies as well. It's not just about thinking of the next great idea. You also have to implement it. You have to monetize it, and you have to make sure it's feasible. You can't just create something new and expect it to work. So tech companies teach you a lot about resilience, about trying new ways, and about being persistent as well. They also teach you a lot about getting a lot of responsibility when you're not really sure what's happening. There is a lot of times where I literally, in Google's internal search engine, Google, how does this work? Because I'm not sure, but you figure it out. And I guess the knowing that you can figure it out is what the tech company wants from you, not the fact that you know the answer already, but as Paul said, that problem solving characteristic is really what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, we can fully endorse that. I've noticed in the last year or two, and I'm thrilled to see it, that our students are getting involved in lots of different types of clubs and societies. But on the tech side, it's great to see we've had quite a bit of coding for girls, or different types of coding clubs coming into the school. And you know, as you're saying, there's no, you know, many roles within tech, but it is really interesting to have a little bit of insight into the world of coding and understanding what happens underneath the hood as well. So possibilities.
Definitely. That's one thing I think I might go back and study at some point, is a little bit of coding. I've done a few, you know, like 4-week courses, but I'd love to not become a software engineer, but again, just understand a little bit more so that you know what you're talking about when you speak to a software engineer, and you kind of are coming to it from, you know, the same level. So that's something, again, in terms of encouraging that breadth of knowledge, but that's specializing.
100%. Okay, and so Zane, we hope that answered your question. There was also a question there about enterprise modules, and just to say that in the Quinn School, we've a couple of pillars that are really important to us. Lucia has mentioned one, which is business and society, and so every student in the school does a module in their first year, thinking about the big global challenges, these sustainable development goals, and thinking about things like the role of gender in our lives and so on. And also we have a pillar around enterprise and innovation. And so we top and tail the degree with these ideas, and all our students take a module in new venture development. But in addition, there's lots of opportunities with modules and with electives to specialize if entrepreneurship were of a particular interest to you. So have no fear about that. Yes, there's plenty of opportunities. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that some of the ways that people develop their skills throughout the school, the experience in the Quinn School, are to do with some of the additional opportunities that, for example, have been mentioned, like the London trip or time to study abroad. So Lucia, I know that you spent some time while studying BCom International in China.
Yes, it was amazing. I actually, before my full study abroad year, in first year, I got a chance to go to Beijing on summer school for about 8 weeks, which was amazing. That was my first taste of ever being in Asia. And then I spent all of my third year in Beijing again afterwards, studying at the Peking University and Renmin University. And it was amazing how in just a few weeks, Beijing felt like my home. And I remember feeling so scared when I first left, but there was a huge gang of us that went. I think almost 21 of us went to Beijing just that year, and they became like my family. We're still all very good friends. And it was great to be immersed in China from a cultural perspective, but also as a student as well. We studied Chinese language for our first 6 months, and then we studied business modules through English for the second half of the year. And it was great being around other Chinese students, but also other international students. I think something a lot of people don't realize is that Beijing is a really international city. And so apart from my Chinese friends, I had Colombian friends, Americans, Canadians, and I learned so much from, first of all, living away from home in a different country, but also about how to, get a job in a new country. A number of my friends got internships with the Kerry Group in Shanghai at the time. So we were working with Irish companies in China, and also seeing how, new entrepreneurs, as was mentioned, move to China to start up new ventures. A friend of mine and I worked on weekends with somebody who was setting up a new food business in China as well. So you had lots of opportunities that you normally just wouldn't get living in Dublin. And I would really recommend a year abroad if possible to definitely do it, not just from a language perspective, but just from seeing new ways of doing things. Like in China, I remember thinking it was so weird that everyone was paying for their meals with their phone, because I hadn't seen like a wallet on a phone before. And now, like 5 years later, we're all doing it here as well. So China is really ahead of the world when it comes to technology at that time. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well, is that you learn so much, not about business as well, and from different countries and what's normal for them and what's not normal for us. So yeah, it was a great experience. And I've been to China a few times since, and the Chinese comes back, which is great. But I really enjoyed living there.
Can I just add to that as well? I met a UCD student today for interview, and she's in Austria on the Erasmus program, and the amount of independence she's gained already is fantastic. And ask any employer, they love talking to the students who have built up that independence, having studied and in some cases working abroad. It's a fantastic thing as well. So I'm a big fan of the international element of the BCom. You can recognize the students from a distance, and every employer will say the same thing. They love the maturity, they're work ready, they're life ready, and a new experience that wasn't necessarily on the plan, but they picked up along the way over those months.
Yeah, we might add, like, as one of the C skills, confidence. I guess there is something about that, just leaning into new experiences, that does give you confidence. It's rarely arrogance, because usually one of the things about travel is it really exposes us to how diverse the world is and how much there is to learn for us all. So yeah, we're so proud that our students have these opportunities, and we do everything we can to make that possible in all its different forms, so I hope you're getting a feeling from that from our panel throughout the evening, and especially right now. So just to mention to everybody on the call, if you do have any additional questions for us, don't hesitate to ask. And I think what I'll do is I'll go to each of our panelists there may be further questions that we'll pick up, but really I'd just like to ask you for any closing message. And I guess I'm thinking that on the call there are people who are thinking, should I study business? And what would it mean for me as a career in business? And we have the benefit of, career coach and expert, somebody who's really at an exciting point in their career, having completed a business degree 5 years ago, and somebody who really looks across the whole sector and recruits and sees the pattern and trends across the sector from within the professional services. So maybe just to close with an invitation to each of you to give us a closing comment on your advice or observation to our callers this evening. Leonie, will we start with you, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's no problem. Thanks, Maeve. I suppose I'd just like to drill home my final message would be, really make the most of your time within UCD and within the College of Business, like Tulise and Paul mentioned, do the academic internship program, or a summer internship, whatever I suppose would suit your circumstances, get involved in clubs, societies, sports teams, whatever you're interested in, I suppose, and whatever suits your personality type. Maybe do some volunteer work or get involved in, the community as well, just to help build up your skills and your strengths during your time in UCD. And again, just I suppose my final message is use all of the career supports and other supports are available to you during your time in UCD.
Thank you so much, Leonie. That's great. And Talisha, would you like to join us now on at this point?
Yes. I think the main thing I would recommend, as Leonie said, is lean into those new experiences. If there is a case study competition and you don't know what that is, apply for it. Or if there's a trip to London for investment banks, go for it. Someone is saying they want to start up a new society and you want to see what it's like to set that up in UCD, go for it. Because all of these experiences, they might not seem like big deals as you're doing them, but they're really building you up, not just for, your career, but just for life in general, because you'll have an experience of having to go ask a company for thousands of euros for money to sponsor you, or you'll have gone to a new country, or you'll have met this one person who will be your step into that company in the future. And so no matter what degree you decide to go for it, definitely lean into those new experiences. But I can definitely say that business, at least, is a really good, conducive environment for new experiences in general. There's just so much happening in it. So yes, try lots of new things. And I think business is a great way for you to step into that.
Thank you so much, Talisha. We appreciate it. And Paul, what about yourself?
I guess as an employer, I very often can almost identify a UCD business student. There's a confidence there, and you mentioned it earlier on, Maeve. It's not an arrogance, there's a confidence. But that comes with, I guess, an armory of skills that have been built up over the 3 or 4 years. That's such an important thing for all employers, to use that time where you have additional skills on top of your academic skills as well. And they might seem like small things, as mentioned previously. Societies, case competitions are fantastic. Lots and lots of employers do that. We run a skill zone thing in first year with Maeve, and just teaching business skills back into students to get them thinking a little bit differently, and how to see how the textbook is applied in the business world, and bringing those skills into the fore. And I think things start to come together very well for the students if they go with that open mindset. And even the part-time job very often might only be for the pocket money, but you're building those teamwork skills that I talked about, communication skills, problem-solving skills. Very often, all employers in all sectors want those skills. And I think building a CV from the beginning in UCD, and what was missing over the last year and a half is the in-person activity and the on-campus activity. Now that students are back on campus, to relish that and appreciate it like never before, because it's such an important thing to have that, I suppose, roundedness coming to any employer in any sector. Every employer is looking for the perfect fit, and there's no such thing, right? But you are looking for people who have built up that UCD confidence, and that's an important thing in any industry.
Well, thank you so much for that, Paul, and indeed everybody. It's really inspiring, and I think you're right, Paul. It really has been missing. We all appreciate how much was possible. We stood on our heads. I think everybody in the whole sector to make sure that as much progress was made as possible throughout the 18 months. But the bit about just being together and the sense of community that's possible in the university environment is really the magic ingredient that transforms everything. So there is, I think, sometimes almost so much possibility that it could be overwhelming. And I would say to you that just to trust that actually, if you can just bring what Talusha has described as just your openness, bring an open mind, bring an open heart to college, and bring your curiosity. There's so much that you can choose a few things that are going to be special to you. You don't have to do everything, but what is joyful is to hear your own particular story about the whys and the whats of what you did and the what you got from it, or maybe how you changed from it, or what you would do differently. It will be your story, but your story is what you will find employers and indeed everybody that you meet in life is interested in. So we hope you've heard enough to pique your interest. If you have questions, all of the team here at Quinn are very, very happy to hear more from you. We'd like to thank everybody who's been on the call this evening for staying with us, and especially like to thank our panel for sharing their perspective and their experience so generously. So Leonie, thank you as always, and thank you for all the work you do with our students throughout the year. Talusha, we're so proud to hear how you're getting on in your career, and thank you for sharing that with everybody listening here. And Paul, thank you, and thank you to all of your colleagues at KPMG as well. As you mentioned, we've been doing some really interesting creative partnerships together in co-creating some experiences for students, and some scholarships for students as well that we think are really important to just making sure that the people who have the spirit and the openness that we're talking about can avail of those opportunities. So without further ado, I think we will close the call, but I do want to thank everybody for their time and their questions and comments this evening. We've really appreciated them.